Just in time.
Welcome, friends and family, to another episode of the Backdoor Cut Show. We are here recording during the college football playoff championship. We appreciate everyone who's following us on _barnburner, watching us on Periscope. Send us some comments. We'll interact with you the best we can. You can find us on the Barnburner Podcast Network. That's where you can subscribe to our podcast, and also the-barnburner.com. I'm Zach. You can find me on Twitter at barnburnerbro. We got Mason over here in California. How are you
What's
doing?
happening? Hey, man. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this has been the most fun regular season stretch of Grizzlies basketball ever.
Wow.
Since the team moved to Memphis.
That's big. I like it.
It's going to be a big show, man. What's up, Sam?
Hey, man. Just enjoying my Monday night, watching the college football playoffs. Saw the Oscar nominations drop today, and my beloved Uncut Gems was snubbed from the Oscars because Zach saw it. And
we got this theory. I don't ever see Oscar flicks.
My boy, the Sandman, has a good heart about it, though. He realizes that it's because he makes 10 other shitty Netflix movies that the Academy just doesn't respect him as an actor. But he rest assured that movie will exist in my mind and heart forever. So shout out to Uncut Gems. Shout out to the Safdie brothers for making a movie tailored towards me. But I'm ready to talk Grizzlies, man.
Yeah, on the docket tonight, we're going to talk last week. Grizzlies went undefeated. Pretty awesome. A couple news and notes. Where the Grizzlies are rising in the NBA Power Rankings. Our new segment that we've enjoyed over the past few weeks called Twitter Corner. And then we're going to round it up with our Grizzlies midseason awards, as we are right at the 40-game mark, so pretty close to midseason. Instead of doing like all NBA, we just wanted to hone in on the Grizzlies players and kind of give our analysis and awards to those very deserving young men who have given us so much joy this season. Thank you very much, guys. All right.
Are they veterans?
I don't. Some people have only played like 20 or 40 games. So
No, I mean like war veterans. Did the Grizzlies fight in World War III? Yeah.
Some of them could, I think. I don't actually know the draft laws or like the range, but
they're all getting drafted, man. They're all right in that range. It's 18 to 26. Valanciunas is fighting for Lithuania, though. We don't know how they feel about this. We don't know if they align with Iran or whatever.
We never know. Climate could be sending their ass out into the draft or come trade deadline, shipping people out. So
hey, I'm down to send Iggy to the fucking front lines. I'll tell you that right now.
Hey, all right. We do have a comment. We got Grizz God has chimed in and asked, did the Righteous Gemstones get nominated for Best Picture?
No, unfortunately not. Yeah, good show though. Like I dig that. I don't know if they got any Emmy nominations or Golden Globes, which is the television kind of piece of the award season. But it was funny. It's classic Danny McBride. I really enjoyed that show.
Mama told me not to. I did anyway. That song is great, man. Righteous Gemstones.
Yeah.
Shout out to that. All right, so the Grizz started the week off at home against the Timberwolves. Zach's about to fucking blow a gasket over there if we don't get into the show.
Zach wanted to wait till 10:30, but we were like, we got to get going. I got to go to bed.
Yeah, I ain't lying.
So Minnesota comes to town, pretty hapless team. No Karl Anthony Towns. Andrew Wiggins has kind of fallen back to Andrew Wiggins' level of play, where you don't really notice that he's on the court. In this game, we had three guys score 20. Ja had 25 and 7, but Dylan Brooks led the way with 28 points. Jaren had 21 and 7 and 3 blocks. But what was impressive from Jaren in this game was he was 1 for 7 from 3 going into the fourth quarter. And then he just hits 3 threes in the fourth quarter because we were trailing by 8 going into the fourth, came back, won the game, 119, 112. Big second half performance. And this was a game when Ja and Jaren really started running the pick and roll late. Like they would run it, and if it didn't work, they would run it again until they found something that they liked. Ja had 10 in the fourth quarter. That was the 8th time this year that he's scored 10 or more in the fourth quarter, which as a rookie is pretty insane. I feel like there's decades when we didn't have someone score 10 in the fourth quarter, whether it was Mike, Mark, or Zebo. And Ja he's just a different breed, man. Jay Crowder had 5 steals that game in the third quarter to really get us going. We were down 14 early on, but came back to win. We shot 29% from 3, so one of our rough shooting games as of late, and we had just 22 assists as a team. But we got the dub. Jared Culver looks pretty good for the Timberwolves, but our young guns shine brighter. Dylan Brooks had the shades on in the locker room afterwards after he had 28. It's become a trend in the Grizzlies locker room. And as Zach noted on Twitter, it's because the young stars are so bright that they have to wear shades in the locker room. All right, next up, we play the Spurs. Who's taking that one?
Yeah, so we enter this game, and the winner of this matchup is standing to take the 8th seed in the playoffs. So big game here at home in the Grindhouse, if we still call it that, the Grizz Next Gen House or whatever. And Zach and I, we go to the game. We move up our seats like 3 rows, but it felt better. We watched big game. I mean, we pulled out all the stops. We moved 3 rows in front, and LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan. Let me start with the Spurs. So they got their 2 elderly stars. I say elderly because I feel like they've been in the league forever, and in fact, have at least a decade. DeRozan looked like every bit the all-star that we knew him to be in the Raptors. He was getting into the lane at will, pulling this patented jumper, 17-foot elbow jumper, getting to the rim, a lot of phantom foul calls. The officiating was a little suspect. It usually is in Grizzland, but this game, DeRozan was the benefactor of a few phantom foul calls. And honestly, it looked like we couldn't stop the Spurs. They were getting everything they wanted to. Also, hilariously, LaMarcus Aldridge shoots threes now. And I saw a tweet that said, I think it was part of Lowe's 10 things I like and don't like. He said, it's as if LaMarcus Aldridge, someone finally said, hey, man, behind this line here, you get 1 extra point because he's been shooting jumpers for like the entirety of his career. But he's now shooting. He looks great, man. Like that shit went in. He was like 3 of 5 from 3 or something, pretty close to that, maybe 3 of 6. But he hit 3 initially. What you laughing at, Zach? What you got?
Leave it to Hunter to throw Sam off.
Yeah, man. Look. I made a bet with a guy named Hunter Williams on the Wizards versus the Grizzlies straight up. So far, I'm losing that bet. But let me tell you this. I haven't lost that bet yet. There's still half the season left to be played. It's straight up $100. And, if I lose, I'm going to be a man. I'm going to pay you up. Actually, I'm going to pay you $100 worth of UB's gift cards. So you have to eat UB's burgers and tots. You can't even eat salads because I'm going to make you eat the shitty shit. So you're welcome. Spurs. Grizzlies looked really good. After the game, Taylor Jenkins, our coach, actually said what I thought would be a kind of an intelligent soundbite in the midst of something that might sound dumb, and that was that we beat a good team. We beat a good team playing good basketball, and we had 39 assists in the game. We were moving the ball extremely well, and something I've started to notice the way we played, kind of this recent stretch, this post John Morant back injury stretch, is that we are sharing the ball at a what I call Spurs/Warriors rate. The ball is zipping side to side. No one's taking the first shot, and all these guys are playing really unselfish basketball. And you can tell that the chemistry of the team and sort of the mood around the team when you're at the game, and you can kind of check them out on the bench. When you're not watching the play, they're just having fun and they really like each other. There's a lot of chemistry on this team, and everyone's having fun watching each other succeed, which is really good. Dylan Brooks, another 20-plus point game, continuing that trend. And the Grizzlies took home a win over a veteran Spurs team, which I would hate to be a Spurs fan now, man, because their 2 old guys they're the same record as us, and they just don't seem to have a good trajectory going forward. Anything else you guys noticed from the Spurs game that I didn't point out? I kind of talked big picture eye test. Bryn Forbes, also want to point that guy out. Michigan State, he was the classic, Spurs role player of the week, where, they have another guy come in that I have to look in the program to figure out who the fuck he is. And he inevitably lights us up, and just, he acts like he's Steph Curry for one game. Surprisingly, it was not Patty Mills this game. So that's improvement.
Thankfully.
Another
note was Jaren tied Mike Miller's second place record on consecutive games with the 3 made against the Spurs, and that was 27 straight. So a second-year guy already tied Mike Miller, who's one of the best shooters ever. Even though the game has changed since Mike Miller played 20 years ago, still a great stat. Ja had 12 in the fourth. The Spurs closed that game in late, and I think we held a 2-point lead going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
ended up winning by 13. So even doing that against a team that's more veteran than us and has two all-stars it's just impressive, man, for what we have on the court. 20, 21, 23-year-olds, like a bunch of young guys to pull away from that Spurs team who had been playing pretty well. They beat Boston. They beat a couple other good teams this week, Milwaukee, I think, and then they came in and lost to us. So just a great win all around. And with that 8th seed on the line, like it had something extra to it. You could tell our guys are trying to downplay this whole playoffs talk, but you knew it meant something more to them. So it was just a fun Friday night win.
It was.
Especially after they came in and lit us up for like the most ridiculous offensive performance ever last time they were in town. And I think, so you asked about, more analysis. It looked like, so Jaren went out with 5 fouls a couple minutes into the fourth, and Jenkins didn't put him back in. Grayson Allen actually finished the game in Jaren's spot, or, with Jaren on the bench. But the things were rolling, and there wasn't like a need to put him back in, and Jenkins just rolled with the 5 guys that were out there. So I just went with the gut, and he seemed to do that a lot this season. He doesn't have a set group of guys that he's finishing out games with. It's just really whoever's playing that day.
Yeah, and something else notable stat-wise is that if you believe in plus minus, there's something to it for sure. The 5 starters, only one of which in that game was actually a minus. Can anyone guess who that was?
Ja.
No. Ja Morant led the team with a plus 21 in the Spurs game, which is actually pretty fucking insane. Jay Crowder is the right answer. He was a minus 10. Dylan Brooks a plus 10, Jonas was a plus 11, and Jaren Jackson was a plus 3, while actually accumulating that many fouls and not even playing in the fourth quarter. But Jay had a pretty uncharacteristic game, I want to call it. Only hitting 2 of his 5 meager field goals, and I guess not impacting the game as much on the defensive end. And in fact, he was only one of 2 players in the entire roster that was a negative. Tyus Jones was the other. Every single bench player, from Solomon Hill to Brandon Clark to Grayson Allen, was a plus, a significant plus. So this is what this team can do when they play to their potential. But I think this game was sort of what you can see as I think the ceiling this year is playing a game like that. Now, granted, if they play like that, they're going to beat everybody in the league. So they can. They're capable of beating everyone in the league. They play within themselves. It wasn't like someone shot uncharacteristically. There wasn't some like crazy Tyus Jones 30-point game or anything. It was a pretty characteristic game for these players. Just everyone was on.
Yeah, and 2 things on that before Zach goes into the Warriors. Jaren's fouls, like I remember at halftime, I was like, oh, Jaren has like 0 or 1 foul. And then like he got them all in the stretch of that third quarter, and he just really seemed to get flustered as those fouls accumulated. So I think that has something to do with Jenkins not going back to him. And Grayson's playing well, man. Shout out to Grayson. I know we gave him a lot of shit when we traded for him, since we've had him, maybe up to this point, and we still will. But he's been, knocking down shots. He's shooting over 40% from 3. So I'm pleased with that. And then on the go ahead and go into the Warriors.
No, you're good. All right, so Warriors game. D'Angelo Russell was the tough man to stop. Dylan Brooks got a lot of time on him, but regardless, Russell led all players, almost 35 minutes, 34 points. Grizzlies were hanging in there. Golden State was hanging in there through halftime, but third quarter, complete reversal of how Memphis has played previous in the season, opened it up, outscored Golden State by 18 in the third quarter. It's too late for me. My brain stops working too much. I think one of the biggest stories, pun intended, for this game was Valanciunas was just a complete monster. He had 31 points, 1 short of his career high, 19 rebounds. He did mess up some of Morant's assists. Morant was trying to get to double-double. He had 11 points and 10 assists, but it took him a while to get that 10th assist because Jonas missed a couple shots on him or missed some passes, so they were joking around a little bit. But Valanciunas was 13 to 17 from the field, so hyper efficient. Hit a 3, 4 or 5 from the line. He just tore it up. Morant, like I said, another double-double. Brandon Clark, not even 20 minutes, 9 points, 11 rebounds. Just so many fun things happened in this game, including I think it was a big D'Anthony Melton game. He played under 20 minutes, but he contributed in a ton of ways. 10 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 blocks.
Whoa, a big block at the rim too.
Mm-hmm. A big block that ended up in a Jaren transition 3 on the other end. So that was a really big play in the game. Taylor Jenkins was able to spread the minutes out a bunch. A lot of guys were able to impact. We didn't shoot particularly well from 3, only 31% on 35 attempts. But Dylan had a pretty rough night. He was 3 of 11 from the field, but other guys like Tyus Jones and, like you said, Grayson, he was 3 of 3 from deep. Kind of picked up some of that slack.
That's efficient.
That is efficient, yeah. And like you mentioned, gave him some props earlier. He's also making some smart decisions. The other day, he wasn't hitting, and he stopped trying to force it. So he realized that wasn't his day. He was a little cold, so he was making the smart pass, driving and kicking a little bit more than we've seen. So I feel like maybe he's realizing that he doesn't have to do everything himself. He can rely on some of the other guys on the team because he is no way near our first option. But if he realizes what we need him to do, play tough defense, push the ball in transition and hit threes, then I think we can find a spot for some minutes for him for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely more to his game than I thought he had. And people try to tell us that, that he was more than a shooter. He could do more. He plays really well in transition. He knows where to be on the court. And his defense, although he's, not the biggest player, his defense isn't bad. But just the bench in this game, like you said, everyone contributed. Tyus, Milton, and Grayson all scored more than 10. You mentioned Brandon Clark having 9 and 11 and barely even playing. And then Tyus and Kyle both had 4 steals. So that production off your bench right there, teams would kill to have that type of production. And it really came in a game when we needed the bench to lift us up. Mm-hmm. The starters not that the bench has been bad, but the starters, they just had that big game versus Spurs. They're riding a lot of momentum. Winning 5 games in a row is not easy, no matter who you play.
Yeah, not at all.
And for us to reach this point this year, I did not think that this team would be able to string together 5 complete games, much less 18, how we've led 16 of the last 18 games or something like that. And in a lot of those, we've had a double-digit lead. So just this team has been super impressive, man. In this game, Jaren passed Mike Miller's record passed Mike Miller for second all time in the Grizzlies record books for consecutive games with the 3 made. Tyreek Evans randomly hit 31 in a row. 3 and 31 games that year he was here with us. And
it doesn't feel like that happened.
Yeah,
we couldn't get a second round pick for him.
Didn't even trade him. We didn't even trade him.
We sent him to Iguodala Island or something.
Yeah, so maybe that's a good transition into how people have been talking about this upcoming trade deadline on Twitter. So that brings us to Twitter corner, I think, Zach.
All right.
There have been some Grizzlies personalities on Twitter. We won't mention any names, but they've been going at it for about 4 or 5 days now in regards to if the Grizzlies should make the playoffs, if that is beneficial for this team at this stage, if the Grizzlies are going to be buyers at the deadline or sellers, and just everyone giving these different definitions of buyers and sellers going into the deadline.
It's like Semantic City.
Yeah. Well, buying a young player counts, but I think of buyers as win now. And it's all in the eye of the beholder. I don't think anyone's right or anyone's wrong in this discussion. But Zach, how are you feeling as the Grizzlies now sit in the 8th seed? We're less than a month away, about 3 weeks away from the trade deadline, actually. So you would expect to see some moves start to happening. The Grizzlies do have guys like Jay Crowder, Solomon Hill on veteran deals. Of course, Andre Iguodala, who we're holding hostage if you let most of the league tell it. But actually, we're just paying him a lot of money to sit at home and whine and make preposterous Twitter claims about how life would be better if he didn't have money, but he won't accept a buyout. Fuck out of here, Andre. Let's get real. And then we also have guys like Kyle Anderson, who maybe aren't playing as much as even a lot of Grizzlies fans would like, but he wasn't brought in by the current front office or the current coaching staff. So a lot of times around the league, you see guys like that moved. And you might think his style doesn't fit. I think his passing ability makes him fit with any team. But anyways,
yeah, his passing and defensive ability, you can find a spot for him, I think.
How are you feeling headed into the trade deadline? What are you thinking we should do? Should we stand pat as is? Should we trade the farm for a piece to get us into the 7th seed this year? What should we do?
Well, it ain't about that. But
is anybody really about that? Like, no, I don't think there's anyone in Grizz Twitter, right?
Grizz Facebook.
Oh,
yeah. You might find it on Grizz Facebook.
Whew, the perils.
But yeah, no, I think I'm still in the same spot that I've been pretty much all season. Is that we've got certain guys on our roster that will most likely not be on the roster next year, and at this point in the season, we should still be looking to move them. If we make the playoffs, that's awesome and that's really fun. That's most importantly a great boost for the guys on the court. That means they're learning how to win. They've had to fight through some roster changes that will inevitably happen. They're growing up way faster than we expected. So that's just icing on the cake this year because, I don't think any of us expected us to be in the playoffs. And 538 only has us at an 8% chance to make the playoffs. So I'm right now in the moment, I'm enjoying us being in the race, enjoying all the recognition that the Grizzlies are getting, even though I'm seeing a ton of tweets from verified accounts like Brandon Clark, he's super efficient. I'm like, yeah. Well, welcome to the party. We've known that for 35 games. We're like, John Morant, he's the real deal. Thank you very much for that analysis. But that's pretty much where I stand on that.
Yeah, so I think I view it a little bit differently than you, unless I just get an offer that I can't pass up for Jay Crowder or Solomon Hill type, then I will, which an offer that I can't pass up is 2 second rounders. So I'm not talking about a whole lot here, but just if this team continues to win, I think it would be beneficial to keep those veteran guys around this locker room. But also understand that if we accumulate assets, that is how we are going to get the third star to go next to John Jaren is by trading for it. More than likely, we're not going to sign them outright in free agent, sign and trade maybe. And we're not going to have another swing, at least at a high lottery pick, the way things are going right now. So we do need to accumulate those assets and make the trade and make ourselves available to make a trade. But man, just this experience the guys are having right now, fighting for a playoff spot now, which I don't think anyone expected them to be doing, even at this point in the season. We played 40 games now, almost halfway through the year. Just the experience that they're going to get going down the stretch. Now they're on a winning streak. How do we maintain this winning streak? How do we continue to work hard? I think having guys like Jay Crowder and Solo and even JV around is just huge. And shout out to the front office for bringing back Valanciunas. That was a big point of contention last year in the summer. And he's not great. He's not an elite center, but I think this year he's been probably a top 10 center, and him expanding out to 3-point range. And he's just like a guy you can throw the ball to and go get buckets. So hopefully, he's not our starting center for the duration of his contract, but Jonas in the 6-man role is still going to be beneficial to this team. But we got Sam back now. We had some technical difficulties. So Sam, I want to ask you, we were talking about the Twitter back and forth that's been going on Grizzlies Twitter about, is the team going to be buyers or sellers at the deadline? Should they make the playoffs? Or should they sell the farm to get the 7th seed? Where do you kind of stand on what the front office should do heading into the trade deadline?
I think that the front office's kind of mantra, which was the sustained continued growth and success, is what they're trying to accomplish, and that involves getting the right young pieces that are going to go with John Jaron and Brandon Clark and this young core that we have, while also not sacrificing kind of just that winning mentality, which I think they achieved in droves this season. I mean, we're literally winning, and like you said, the guys are learning what it takes to win basketball games, go on winning streaks, and the kind of preparation it takes. I thought that. What game was it recently where they came out? I think it was a Timberwolves game where they came out flat in the first half after a long road trip. And then we saw, the team in the second half kind of become a different team and realize that, no matter how good or not good you are, it's the NBA, and night in, night out, you got to compete. And I think that seeing them come out that second half that was almost the most important game to me, was to see that even when they come out flat in the first half, they still have the juice to win a game. That's all because of these vets, and that's all because of this playoff push that we have. So it's really important that John Jaron don't become losers. Like, I don't know, like maybe some people think the Suns are, like that they have the talent. They have obviously a wealth of talent over there, but they just never seem to be able to string together consistent wins because maybe they just don't care as much, because they're used to losing. So with that being said, I mean, you listen to the offers and you make good trades for assets because that's what's most important. But you're certainly not trying to purposely unload them for nothing, for no reason. Like when I say them, I mean kind of the vets, the Jays and the solos, or solos. But no, I'm not opposed to trading them, and certainly any picks and any kind of young like DeAnthony Melton types, young guys that just aren't seeing any run on their team, that our front office has proven to be able to identify. I think that's what we're looking for. Like you said, we need assets to get that third guy to make an enticing trade to someone else. And I don't think it's impossible to keep doing that with these vets that have proven themselves very valuable to like a Lakers or a Clippers or whoever else needs the extra push as their season doesn't go as well as they'd hoped.
Yeah, definitely in a good spot come trade deadline time, and I think just the overall confidence in the front office is higher than it's probably ever been.
Higher than I remember, anyway. I mean, I don't remember the pre-Chris Wall, like kind of the before 2010. Like I don't know much about the front office from that era. Yeah.
Yeah, Zach, what we got next on Twitter Corner?
So today, at the Hoop Central, they provide a ton of basketball news analysis. Put out a tweet. We kind of referenced this a second ago. The tweet says, quote, "The Memphis Grizzlies have quietly put together an impressive young core featuring John Morant, Jaren Jackson, Dylan Brooks, Brandon Clark, and DeAnthony Melton, currently sitting at the 8th seed in the Western Conference." So, initial thoughts of seeing that is, what's the difference in quietly putting this core together and loudly putting this core together?
That is a very operative adjective there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important. I guess it's an adverb because it's describing put. But look, it's only quiet if you were listening, and they weren't. At no point has anyone that's followed basketball, apparently. I mean, not no one, but these sort of general like Hoop City pundits, these Twitter accounts that get started. Not like it's like ESPN barn burner, then all these like down here, right. And it's like you can't just because you didn't realize it or didn't pay attention doesn't make it like we're quietly sneaking around behind the scenes and scheming like Russian Soviet spies to put together this draft. In fact, the majority, everyone except for DeAnthony Melton of the players he references were acquired in the draft with picks, that we either owned outright or traded up to get. So including John Morant and Jaren Jackson, who were two top 5 lottery picks.
Yeah,
which are
sorry we picked like properly in the top 5.
Yeah, it's a very interesting way to describe that. And this isn't the only. This is just kind of a comical. Kind of dunce of the day tweet that we roasted on today. But I mean, I've seen this a lot, like people talking about how quiet the Grizz have been accumulating this talent and how they've just sneakily done all these things and this and that. And I mean, I don't understand how you could even what that even means. I mean, we're building the team just like any other team does. I guess we're not making splash free agent trades or signings, which may be the loud way to build a winning team. But I just think it's kind of funny. And however we can get shine, awesome. I mean, I love to see love for the Grizzlies. That's great. But it's funny to see the way that people sort of tiptoe their way around arguing like they actually ever paid attention.
It's like the roster, like we didn't know who was going to be on the roster, and then there was a tarp over them, and then they're uncovered, and they're like, look who we got.
Yeah, it's exactly, yeah.
even like DeAnthony Melton, he was in the trade with the number 4 pick. Like, so it wasn't just not talked about, like Josh Jackson was definitely talked about when he was traded. And then, I'll give him Dylan Brooks. He was a late second rounder, but 4-year SEC or 4-year college player. People knew he was going to be good.
Yeah, and Brandon Clark was everyone. Yeah,
everyone knew about that one.
If you're on NBA Twitter, like you saw during the draft, everyone was like, "Oh, can't believe Brandon Clark continues to drop."
Yeah, and then the second we traded up 2 spots to get him, worried that he wouldn't fall to us. All of this, the pundits were like, "Oh, what a smart trade by the Grizzlies! Like to manipulate those assets and get the guy they really wanted once they saw him slip far enough to get him." And it's like, I mean, we've all been here, and I understand we're hyper aware of it, but like at some point it gets kind of comical. It's like, how can you even hold yourself out? Like you at all pay attention to anything if you just now realize that we've been doing this for 3 years now.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just my business. That's Kermit sipping tea. I didn't make my tea.
And you know what's great about Brandon Clark? Do y'all remember the last player who like fell to us or we like moved up to get, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's a great pick."
Jordan Adams?
Nah,
It's not good. Recent. I bet.
Deontay Davis is who comes to my mind.
Oh yeah.
Everyone was like, "Oh, what a steal!"
Man.
Playing in South Haven tonight.
Is he really?
Isn't that right, Zach?
Yep, him and
damn,
old Andy Harrison are teaming up on the G League. And
shout out Deontay. Still got a room in Vince's house, I'm sure.
I used to stand hard for Andrew Harrison too. I still think he can play.
Is that your island?
Andy Harrison, yeah, man, that's you did.
That ain't no island.
Almost
that's like
past the Spurs in the playoffs, huh?
Yeah. And while we're on the that G League game that's going, I think they're playing in South Haven. Bruno and Marco were sent down to play with the Hustle. And Rosa reported during the game, I haven't checked for an update, but that Bruno had to be helped off the court with what looked like a knee injury. So prayers up for Bruno, man. Don't need you getting hurt.
Man.
You're going to get your opportunity. Keep working hard, man.
At least he got that contract before that happened.
Yeah, that's what I was telling Zach before the show. Good how that works.
Yeah.
He must be a good dude.
Yeah.
Looks like Marco dropped 20. 3-3-3. Bruno had 15-5. Yuta 19-10. Josh 17-5, and Dusty Hannah's had 21 points.
Hustle down there rolling.
Yeah, man.
What's their record now? Like, I know they were undefeated for a long time, but anyone got no one know that off the top of their heads?
Yeah. I couldn't say.
They could have lost every game since they were undefeated. For all I know.
The Hustler quietly putting together a successful season down there in South Haven.
I got one more thing for Twitter Corner. I don't know if y'all do, but Sam, our very own, he had a tweet early in the week comparing the current Grizzlies to the Thunder from 2008-2009, which was Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. And Sam, you don't have to dive back into the numbers, but what kind of stood out to you when you compared those two teams?
So, I mean, obviously very, very, very positive returns. We're talking kind of similar teams built through the draft, like a pick in Kevin Durant and our equivalent would be Jaren Jackson, and then a guard pick the next year, which is Russell Westbrook versus John Moran. So the comparison was this year Grizzlies team, year 2 Jaren, rookie year Ja versus year 2 KD, rookie year Russ. And that Thunder team only won like 26 games. But you could start to see the building blocks of what they were going to become with, their offensive numbers were pretty good. They were, weren't like the very bottom of the league, and defense still had some to be worked on. But all of our numbers, except for some of our defensive numbers, were better and more efficient. Our offense is quicker. It's faster paced, and obviously the game's changed significantly since then. But we are on pace to win 10 more games. And it's important to note too that next year that the Thunder existed in year 3 KD, year 2 Russ. They added, of course, James Harden, so they added another MVP. So caveat that we won't do that this year. The Grizzlies will not have likely, unless something catastrophic happens, a lottery pick to get a kind of James Harden comparison. Not that there is one, but they went on to win 50 games the next year. So we saw a huge jump in that team, once the players matured. And Scotty Brooks was coaching that team. So it had to have been the players. It sure as hell wasn't the coach. And Ibaka was also a crucial part. The point being that we have a lot to look forward to with this team. That they're, I think, very comparable to that in terms of the way the team's built and kind of the way the guys play. I mean, Russ isn't an exact comparison. Harrington's now kind of shifted to the Chris Paul comp for Ja, and with maybe a little bit of Russ's athleticism, or John Wall's athleticism and quickness. But it's very, very nice to see that. And I mean, none of us could have expected this season the way that it transpired so far.
Yeah, and Harrington had another comparison, which he wrote about at the Daily Memphian, comparing us to last season's Bucks, which Jenkins, of course, was a part of Mike Budenholzer's staff up there. And our numbers are like right on par with the Bucks, except we have more assists. Since December 6th or whatever, I think since Ja came back.
That's right.
But the teams that we're being compared to in this stretch are like last year's Bucks, who was one of the most efficient teams in history, the Golden Era Warriors,
like 73 win team, yeah. And not only that, but yeah, our numbers, and of course this is all with since the Ja return, which apparently is now like the after death AD date for this season. But all those numbers are better. I mean, like they're slightly better, or we have more assists. So that's honestly just wild. And I know, of course, we're going to game system to compare numbers that are more look better for us. But I mean, you can't deny when you approach it from that many different angles. You look at a similar team in the similar years. You look at similar offenses. And you could even tie the coaches to the types of offensive schemes run. And I mean, you can't deny that there's something to this. And we're watching it too. I mean, we watch every game for the most part. At least one of us has eyes on it, and it looks good too. I mean, this isn't like kind of one of those like weird gimmicky things where we happen to play guys on second halves of back-to-backs or like whatever. We're beating teams like consistently. We're scoring 110 points consistently, and so it's something to behold. And damn, it's a lot of fun to watch. I mean, you ain't seen basketball like this in the grindhouse and maybe ever.
Does it seem weird? I don't know if it was after the Warriors win or the Spurs that I saw a couple folks point out that we're at this point in the season, we're the exact same spot as last year.
I think that's like kind of a skewed way because I mean, clearly we're trending
right
upward. I mean, if you look at it like it's like a bell curve, or an economics curve, we're like where now we meet where the X, like we're on the up. Last year's season, we started out hot and then started trending down, and injuries started to accumulate, and we quickly realized that we had to, kind of hit the reset button on this rebuild maybe a little sooner by trading Mike, and so I think that's a completely kind of that tweet sort of skews the narrative. I mean, I understand the point of it, but it's totally different feeling, and we all know it.
Yeah, it's food for thought type thing.
Yeah,
sure. Not much more.
At this point last year, we had just endured Gasol's like awful December stretch where like he didn't try to play, and so we knew by this point that it was over. You could just feel it, and I think they had already made the announcement that they were opening up shop for Mike and Mark. And this year it's just like, oh, the possibilities,
dude! How crazy!
Dr. Street's book.
yeah, it is. Oh, the places you'll go with John Jaron in tow.
Yeah,
but
there you go.
Yeah, appreciate that. Hey, Sig Ep, yeah, shout out Naismith too. Two relevant guys to this podcast. So last year, a year ago, we had Mike and Mark on this team, man. And can you remember that? That's fucking crazy that happened. And that was a year ago. And then they announced that we were going to trade them, and we were like, what? That's weird. To announce them and then keep them around like ex-girlfriends, and like that. That feels like so long ago. I mean, when you said that, it felt like we traded Mark like 2 or 3 seasons ago, which is maybe a testament to how long this past year was. But I don't.
It feels like Zebo punched Steven Adams a decade ago, and I learned today listening to Chris Vernon that Steven Adams is only 26. What?
No, he's 40.
I could have sworn he's at least 32.
Anthony Sane would say he's definitely 60. Yeah, he's like, let me see them birth certificates from New Zealand or wherever the fuck he's from. But they're all those European guys always gaming the age system.
I mean, Precious Lachua on the Tigers is 20, almost 21. So
yeah, he looks like it too.
Getting grown
He
ass
should
man.
he should be doing what he's doing. Shout out, Precious.
Future lottery pick.
Yeah.
Anything else in Twitter corner? Anything that caught you guys' eyes, or do we need to dive into the weekly NBA rankings, Zach?
Let's go into the rankings. So, the Grizzlies, as we mentioned, have made a surge onto the national scene, and most of the pundits from ESPN to NBA.com to SI to BR have the Grizzlies in the 14 and 15 range in the league right now in the power rankings. So they're in the 8th seed, so that I don't know the total record, but I mean that puts them about in that range, the 16 range. But they've got them a few spots ahead of that, and just another testament to the surge that this team is making and the kind of recognition that they're getting from the rest of the league, from the media, kind of checking back in on Memphis after they've been probably zoned out for a couple years, but realizing that there's a lot of fun stuff happening here.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's just fun to like read NBA power rankings again, like to have a reason
man.
to.
you
And
have to
that's-
scroll, like they
Yeah.
start at 30. You get to scroll a little bit
Yeah, we're
before
not right
you get
there.
to where Memphis
You
is.
had to click on page 2.
Very
Oh.
enjoyable. All right, that was a quick note. So now let's move into our Grizzlies mid-season awards. We'll start at the top. MVP, Sam, who do you have for MVP this year for the Grizzlies so far?
I have Jaren Jackson Jr. I think that he has initially after a rough start, kind of a rocky beginning with foul-plagued plays and kind of not willing to find his place in this Jenkins 5-out offense, has become maybe the greatest shooter in Grizzlies history at age 20 and standing at 6'11". And I mean, to watch him shoot the ball like he has been doing is both exciting for a on the court perspective, because it's fun to watch. I mean, it's fun to watch them let that shit fly, but also from a he's only for 20 fucking years old perspective too. And I mean, if you look at it, the way I look at like our team right now is that our 2 best players are 20 years old. That means that for the next 9 years, we should get better every year, because the NBA prime is 28, 29. So
that's a little nugget right there.
Yeah, yeah.
That'll give you a chub.
Yeah. So that's how I wake up every morning. I'm brushing my teeth thinking about that. So yeah, I mean, which is an extremely exciting prospect. Of course, assuming that we keep the guys and keep them happy and all that. But let's assume that we can do that, and we should be getting better every year. And Jaren has shown even within a season he can kind of fix his mistakes and grow. So I respect that, and I think he has kind of been one of the linchpins of this team. Obviously, probably our second leading scorer, but still a guy that I think apparently doesn't really affect whether we win or not, because him and Ja are so consistently good. But again, like the reason that a third guy affects our winning so much is because he consistently has 17, 18, 19 and is very efficient and is now rebounding the ball better and isn't getting called as many fouls for whatever reason. I mean, he's doing the same shit, but for some reason they were just like someone phoned it in and said, "Hey, quit calling fouls. He's good enough now," or whatever happens. But he's playing well now.
Mason, who you got for your MVP?
I'm gonna go Ja Morant. The team is 17-17 when he plays, so sitting at a 500 record. He's had 7 games with 10 or more assists. No other rookie has 1.
That is crazy.
Like what?
Wow.
He's sniffing for that triple double. I think it's gonna come. I think he's gonna get it real soon. He almost had it against the Warriors. He was 3 rebounds shy, but I think we're gonna see Ja hit that triple double soon. And then he's also had 9 games, I believe, where he scored 10 or more in the fourth quarter. Just already one of the best fourth quarter scorers in the league. To watch the way he can control a game, even without scoring, like the game he had 14 assists, it looked like he just wanted to go out there and pass for everyone, and that's exactly what he did. And it was just like awesome to watch. He was just dominant. Like the Chris Paul comparison is actually pretty good because he kind of controls the game, makes sure others are getting theirs. And when he hits you for an open shot, it's right where you want to catch it. Whether it's Jaren Jackson, Dylan, anyone, like Ja is hitting you, whether he throws it with the right hand, left hand, off the bounce, behind his back. His passing has just been amazing. So I'll go Ja Morant. Sam, who is having more technical difficulties, great pick with Jaren Jackson. But I'm guessing, Zach, your vote is going to push it over the top here for the Barn Burners Grizzlies MVP of the midseason.
You would be correct, and it's not because you're the only one left on the live stream, but I'm going to go with Ja Morant.
Appreciate you.
I think he's the biggest roster piece from last year and this year, averaging 17 points a game, 6.9 assists, which puts him at tied for 6th in the West among guards, and the list goes Rubio, Doncic, Lillard, Harden, Westbrook, Morant. So pretty elite company. You described his passing beautifully. I think that's one of the biggest things that he's brought to this team, and he's shooting efficiently 48%. You covered most of it, but I think Ja is the biggest difference from last year's team and this year's team, and has been the most important guy. He's not scoring 30 on a nightly basis, but he is certainly commanding enough of the defense to create for the rest of his guys and allow for other guys like Grayson, like DB, to get those shots that they probably hadn't had before, like those open shots. Giving them a lot better opportunity to succeed. So we'll move from congratulations, Ja, by the way.
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
Got the trophy for you at Barn HQ. Just hit us up. We'll get it to you.
A short walk from your downtown office.
Yep.
AKA the Forum. All right. Most improved player. Who you got?
Oh, this is a tough one. I'm like still struggling with it right now, and I was gonna go Jaren, but that's kind of a cop out. But I do think he's worthy. So I'll go Dylan Brooks, just because last year he was pretty bad in the couple games we got to see him play. He averaged 11 his rookie year. He's up to 15 now. And just the stat of when he scores 20 or more and we're 11-0, that's huge for this team. His willingness to shoot the ball is something that Taylor Jenkins' offensive style has to have. And a rational confidence guy, something that a good team has to have. He fouls a lot, and he does some. Sam earlier said that we don't have anyone who who'll dribble it up and shoot it without passing. Like Dylan will every now and then.
Oh, he won't care.
And
Jay and Dylan lead that boat for sure.
Yeah. So, and I mean, none of our veterans have really been, a lot more improved. So I'm gonna go Dylan Brooks. I think he's an important piece to this team moving forward. I don't think he is the answer in the starting lineup necessarily, but he could be. But he's not my third guy or even my fourth guy, for the franchise in the long term when we're contending for titles. Mm-hmm. But I do think he has an important role on this team. So Dylan Brooks.
Yeah, that's who I had too.
Okay.
Dylan. I thought that was really, the roster is a lot different than last year. So most improved was down to only a few people. I mean,
Grayson. I had Grayson up there.
Yeah, I guess if you're counting their total service in the league, you could go with that. But guys like Clark, Tyus, Hill, Anderson, I wouldn't say necessarily is improved or anything since last year. Melton.
Tyus might be the most Jaren's the most from start to now, but Tyus is the probably under the radar most improvement. Melton, we just didn't get to see him. Mm-hmm. His numbers are almost identical to Phoenix, except Phoenix was getting beat by 3 points every time he was on the court, and we're winning we're dusting folks when he's on the court. And then Grayson, what caught my eye was he went from 32% from deep to 40% from deep. So that changes how you view a shooter, obviously.
Yeah, he improved in the area that he most needed to improve in to increase his value and contribution.
Yeah.
So it was awesome.
Exactly.
What
we got next?
Sixth man of the year.
Brandon Clark. I mean, I got to go Brandon Clark. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but just his overall impact on the game, the fact that he can come in and have a quiet night and score 9 points and grab 11 rebounds like he did against the Warriors, just speaks volumes to where he already is as a player. We've talked about him, for several weeks, and everyone who is a Grizzlies fan already knows what he brings to the table. But he can change the game with a big dunk or a big block. But he doesn't have to have those to be effective. Like he's still going to contribute, whether it's hitting the glass, staying vertical. I love his verticality. When someone's driving to the rim and he's contesting a shot, like I think Jaren is kind of learning from him because Jaren's verticality has seemed to get better. And when I say verticality, I mean when you've got like your arms straight up, so your arms are literally like 9 feet high, but they're just straight up. You're not swiping down, and then you have the vertical that Brandon has. Yeah, man, love me some BC. Who you got?
I have D'Anthony Melton.
Ooh, okay.
For 6-man. So he's got an 18 PER, so super solid there. He has the best defensive rating on the team at 107. He's not have as many minutes as a lot of the guys. He's got about half as many minutes as a lot of the starters, but if you extrapolate to his per 36, he literally falls in 6th in scoring. Where does he fall in rebounds? 5th in rebounds. Just kind of a do-it-all Swiss Army knife. We've talked about him a couple times, but certainly he impacts the game when he's in there. And, there's conversations about him being a starter potentially, among the media and pundits. So that's why I slotted him in there.
Man, plays so much bigger than 6'2", too.
Yeah, he's got those long arms.
Yeah.
He got Bruno arms, but like on a much shorter body.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like what he reminds me of.
Sam's been making the Avery Bradley comp. I saw someone else make it on Twitter earlier this week. I think that's pretty solid comp. But yeah, man, shout out to D'Anthony. I mean, and we gave up Javon Carter for him. This dude can actually play in the NBA.
Right, and score in the NBA.
And he's not a bad shooter. I think he's not scared to shoot it, so that's a big thing for these younger guys. But just a Swiss Army knife. Brevin's been calling him Mr. Do Something.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. What we got next? So 6-man of the year, we were split. I went Brandon, you went D'Anthony.
Defensive player of the year. Who you got on that one?
Why don't you go first this time?
All right. So I have Jaren Jackson Jr. as my defensive player of the year. Despite a lot of his foul troubles and missing a lot of opportunities to contribute and getting a lot of ticky-tack fouls and really struggling to learn how to play defense, especially in the post at the beginning of the season, getting a lot of cheap hand check fouls. I think his rim protection has drastically improved over the past month or so. You start to see him a lot on weak side blocks, rotating over. He's not having to guard the center a lot of times, so he's floating back into the paint. That's why I went with Jaren. Mostly his rim protection, because that's something that Valanciunas is not doing. But yet, we're improving on defense. His block numbers, let me get those real quick. He's averaging 1.4 blocks per game. Excuse me. So sipping on tea, sip on water. But I think that impact, he's starting to learn how to use his length. So he's very tall, and like you mentioned, his arms go up to like 12 feet, and he's learning how to utilize the physical ability that he has, and that's what we need from him also, because he can play both ends of the floor very well. He's super athletic, very smart, and so that's why I went with him. Who do you have?
Yeah, I'm going to go Jaren, but I'm going to have a first team all defense. I'm going to give that to D'Anthony Melton and Brandon Clark. I like what both of those guys bring to the table defensively. You mentioned Melton's defensive rating, and he's got like a steal percentage of 38%, like getting all kinds of steals. Even when he's not looking, there was like the Spidey sense steal that Fast Break Breakfast tweeted during the Warriors game when like he just stuck his arm out and someone passed the ball into it. So D'Anthony Melton, he's, kind of Tony Allen-like defender, obviously not that elite yet, but he's got the tools to be a very strong defender if he hones in on those skills and works on them. So yeah, man, overall, not a great defensive team, we have to say during this award, but those three guys are all bringing something to the table and showing potential, that maybe at one point we're like 12th in defense in the league and first in offense.
I think that's a pretty good combination. That'll get you somewhere.
Yep.
All right, so that about wraps it up for
What about Coach of the Year?
Yeah, heck if I know. One of them.
Yeah, we'll give it to Taylor. We'll give it to Jink.
Yeah, he gets all the credit and all the blame too. So yeah, he can take home that one.
Yeah. We'll give Kleiman GM of the Year.
Yeah, sounds good. What else? Trainer of the Year? I don't know.
And I don't know who our trainer is right now. We need to get on that. That's
they
our
doing.
bad.
Knock on wood, they're doing all right this year.
I did see before you close this out, we had 3 people listed on the injury report for tomorrow's game. I think it was Kyle, Brandon, and there was one other person on there. It was like sore feet, sore thumbs, but we had gotten so used to the injury sheet being clean. Like everyone on Twitter was making jokes about it, and we knew it wouldn't last as part of the NBA season. But hopefully those guys can go tomorrow or today, probably when you're listening to this, against the Rockets, who will be without Russell Westbrook. So no Ja Morant, Russell Westbrook matchup once again. I think Friday we play Cleveland, the only 2 games of the week. Slow game for Memphis basketball. We only got them, and then I think we got 1 game from the Tigers this week. So we might have to do some. I might have to write or something. I don't have the excuse of watching games.
Now we'll get you guys a Tigers podcast later this week as well. Again, you can subscribe to the Barn Burner Podcast Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. This is the Backdoor Cut. I'm Zach. This is Mason, and we'll see you later.
You're both.
I'm Zach. This is Mason with me. Get out of here. Bye.